I think I'm speaking for the both of us if I say that we're very excited to be here. And MongoDB is a proud partner of the GitHub Student Developer Pack. And in this session, pardon me, I will dive a bit deeper into the MongoDB offer in the pack. And after that, Mike will share everything about MongoDB and he will take you on the journey of MongoDB Atlas, which is going to be lots of fun. So before we start, I quickly want to share a bit about me, or at least what's still left, because I had this wonderful introduction already. So my name is Lieke, and I am based in the Netherlands, and I work remotely from here. And I live here with my partner and my dog. It's tons of fun. And I am the program manager academia at MongoDB. I joined there in January this year. And before that, as you know, I worked at GitHub most of the time on the GitHub education team, where I also run the GitHub Campus Expert program. And I thought it was nice to actually show this picture. This was last year, November, at GitHub Universe. You might see some familiar faces. And some of these experts, well, plenty we have, but I invited some of these experts last year to join us in San Francisco. And it was really nice so they could connect, so we could meet each other. Those really awesome times where we could still travel and go to conferences and hang out. But yeah, it feels very special actually to be here today and to be part of this amazing event, albeit virtual. So I'm really grateful for that. And well, my passion is in education and to support students and teachers. And that's also what brought me at MongoDB. So I want to dive a bit deeper into MongoDB for academia. This is part of the Emergent Developer Relations team, and the team has a goal, and that's to inspire the next generation of MongoDB users and to make them successful in their work. And MongoDB for academia also wants to create the best learning experiences for students, and we want to make sure that we offer all the resources that we can to make students successful in their future careers. So we actually focus on two target audiences. So we have educators and we have a program for students. And I want to highlight our educators program as well, because there might be professors in the audience or teaching assistants, or maybe you have a teacher and you really want them to teach MongoDB. So if you're curious about our offer, you can go to educators.mongodb.com. This offer is for universities, schools, boot camps, or online courses, so it's very broad. And what we offer at the moment is content support. That means that we provide new course materials, or if you're already teaching MongoDB, we also help you with reviewing the content, going through it, make suggestions, just to make sure that everything is up to date. And besides that, we give you access, on-demand access to MongoDB University. This means you can actually follow all of the courses that MongoDB University offers in your own pace and your own time. Because normally you have to sign up and there's a date and there's a time. And with the on-demand access, this is actually lifted. So that's really nice. You can share this license with other students or with your students, and you can also follow the progress of the students. And lastly, which is also really cool, is that we have an academia community. This is a private group on the community forums, and we invite you there and you can collaborate, share tips, ask us questions, and hopefully get inspired. And then obviously we have the students, and we joined the GitHub Student Developer Pack in February. And our offer is actually the biggest offer that we have at the moment. And what it means is that if you join the GitHub Student Developer Pack and you sign up for the MongoDB offer, you get access to MongoDB Compass. That's the GUI for MongoDB. And it gives you a better understanding of your data without the need to really know the MongoDB query syntax. So that's actually pretty nice. We also give on-demand access to students. And on top of that, we offer free certification. So you can follow a learning path, for example, the developer one or the database administrator one. And once you're completed it, you can send me an email And then I give you a code, and with that code, you can register for the exam for free. And then we give you access to MongoDB Atlas. And MongoDB Atlas is our global cloud database service for modern applications. You can actually set up a free tier, which already covers quite a lot if you have maybe a simple project. But if you want to scale, we give you $200 in Atlas credits. Mike will also dive deeper into Compass and MongoDB Atlas, so don't worry about it. And if you're curious about the offer, you can go to students.mongodb.com. And what's obviously nice is that we have a lot of students who already used our offer in the GitHub Student Developer Pack. And I just want to highlight a couple of them. So if you go to the student gallery on GitHub Education, you actually find tons of projects on there. And some of them, or a lot of them, have MongoDB as well. You can, for example, build a blogging platform, as you see here on the left, or a strategy game, a real-time strategy game. That's also very nice. Or you can go for a multiplayer online game like Pictionary, or you could do something completely different as the last one, and that's a web application that actually provides crucial information in times of crisis, medical crisis, like being in a pandemic. So if there's anything that you want to see, go there and you find tons of nice projects that are made with MongoDB and the GitHub Student Developer Pack. And we know that MongoDB is actually becoming more and more popular with students, and that a lot of students are excited about MongoDB and are building projects with MongoDB. And that's also something that kind of inspired us to launch our MongoDB Student Spotlight program in the beginning of 2021. It's like, it feels like so long, but it's almost here. And what we will be doing is we'll have a page for students where we not only highlight the project, but also the student. So it's for students by students. And we hope by showing these MongoDB projects and a bit of the background of the students to also inspire others to build with MongoDB. And maybe we can inspire educators with some assignments that they can create. So we're very, very excited about that. And we'll also be launching new course content for educators this quarter. So that's already soon. And it will be a course about why MongoDB and why NoSQL or NoSQL. So that's actually something we noticed that a lot of teachers would like to have. So we're also very excited to be launching this quarter. Those are some short-term features. We obviously have tons on the roadmap for next year. So I would say keep an eye on developer.mongodb.com/academia. It's a long URL, but it's a great website to go to. And if you go there once in a while, just to stay updated of everything that will be launching soon. That's kind of what I wanted to share with you. I know it's not a lot of time, and I look forward to chatting with you later or on Twitter, everywhere. If you have any suggestions or questions, you can email me at academia@mongodb.com, or please go to the forum, ask your question there. I'm also on there regularly. So you can go to community.mongodb.com. And with that, I am handing it over to Mike, who will show you all the awesome things about MongoDB and MongoDB Atlas. So thank you.
It's great to be here. Terrific. I am also very excited and inspired. There's so much going on at MongoDB. Who am I? I am Mike Lin. I am a developer advocate at MongoDB. I'm based in Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia on the eastern coast of the United States. And I've been with MongoDB just about 5 years, having a blast, working on all sorts of amazing projects. Looking forward to working with you. So I also host, along with Nick Raboy, the MongoDB podcast. And that's where we cover all sorts of great topics related to software development, data, and anything related to MongoDB. So check that out at mongodb.com/podcast. I hope you can take a listen and enjoy that. And Lieke already mentioned this, but check out the community. There's forums where you can interact with other users. I'm in there every day looking for questions, looking to interact with folks like yourself. So check that out. So what is MongoDB? Let's get into it. MongoDB is a document-oriented database, and I'm going to cover a little bit more about that in detail. But when I say document-oriented, what does that mean? It is developer-friendly. Every decision that is made about how to modify or enhance MongoDB is made with the developer in mind. And you're going to see some of the ways that that comes to the front. It's highly scalable and available. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, explain it, and then I'll go into a demo. So I want to get right into it. What is this giant mess? What is this? It's an entity relationship diagram. And what you're seeing there is all those little boxes are tables. This is what you would see in a legacy or a relational database management system. Some of you may be familiar with this. This is how you develop the schema for a relational database management system. MongoDB is a little different. It is documents versus tables. So we use a little bit different terminology, and I think it helps to draw the lines, the comparisons between RDBMS and MongoDB, or a document database. We still call things databases, but where you would call something in a table in a database, we have collections. So we have collections of documents, and where you would have a row in a table, we call that a document. So I'm going to show you what these documents look like, but just know that you also are able to, with MongoDB, support joining information from multiple collections of data. You have the ability to create views as you would in a traditional database, and you have the ability to support ACID transactions. That's very important for highly scalable applications. This is what it looks like. On the left, you have a couple of tables for an application designed for a relational database management system. And it looks like from the data shown here that it's an application that deals with people and their cars. Well, we're representing data on the left in tables, rows and columns in tables. We can represent that very same information in MongoDB using a document, and that's exactly what you see there. That is a JSON document, JavaScript object notation. That's basically keys and values. The keys are always going to be strings, and the values, they can be strings, yes, but they can also be pretty interesting structures of data, like sub-documents or arrays of documents. And that's what we're representing there in the cars field. It is also developer-friendly in that you can develop applications to modify and maintain MongoDB data in virtually any modern framework or language that you're used to using. JavaScript, Node.js, C, C++, C#, Go, Ruby, Scala, R. All of these are supported through the rich network of MongoDB drivers. We also have some tools that will help you as a developer. So MongoDB Compass is the user interface for MongoDB. You install that on your laptop or desktop, and you can use it to connect to MongoDB and visualize your data, as well as edit or update documents right in your database. We have the MongoDB shell, which gives you command line access. So if you want to log in with a shell and you're comfortable issuing command line commands, then you can use MongoDB shell. And lastly, something relatively new, we have a MongoDB extension for VS Code. So if you're a VS Code user, I'm sure there's plenty of you out there. You can install an extension and modify and view your MongoDB databases right inside VS Code. Let's talk about MongoDB Atlas. Now, Lieke mentioned it. It is our database as a service, which means it is online. It's in the cloud. It's highly available. It's free forever for the M0 sized instance. What is that? Well, I'm going to get to the different tier sizes in just a moment, but just know that you can log into MongoDB Atlas, create your user ID, and launch a cluster without even pulling out a credit card. And you can run any kind of data, any kind of application against that. The only restriction is in the amount of data that you store and the availability of the CPU and RAM. It's going to be shared instance on the lower M0 tier. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. But there's also built-in security. There's backup and restore. There's auto scalability between the tier sizes. If you're not sure, you can set a configuration setting to automatically scale between different tiers. And these are the available tiers that we have. We actually have some that didn't fit on there. There's an M700 with, just tons and tons of RAM and storage available to you. I think it's best if we jump into a demo. What do you think? Just change my tab here. I hope that's large enough. Lieke, can you see that okay? All right, so I'm logged into MongoDB Atlas, and I got there by going to cloud.mongodb.com. and you'll have to register and create a user ID. Once you do, it will walk you through a wizard. Your first interaction with MongoDB Atlas is going to be to create your first cluster. It's going to look something like this. Create new cluster. Now, the first section of information that we could fill out is going to allow you to scale your database across the globe. Most users right out of the box are not going to be doing this. They're just going to be accepting the default and having a single cluster in one data center somewhere in the world. So we'll skip the global cluster configuration for the time being, and you can do that as well for your first cluster. The next question is about the cloud provider. What is a cloud provider? Well, these are the services that we as MongoDB leverage to launch, deploy, and maintain your MongoDB database based on all of the configuration preferences that you have. So MongoDB Atlas is an application that lives above the cloud provider. You go to cloud.mongodb.com and you're running Atlas as an application in your browser. And we deploy the MongoDB instances into AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure based on your preferences, based on your configuration settings. Today, I'll deploy a new cluster into an AWS environment. And the next thing I want to do is change or set the location where that database lives. And I want to set it right now because I'm the only one developing against it. I probably want it to be close to where I am. And as I mentioned, I'm in Philadelphia. So I'm going to select North Virginia. That also has a free tier available. So that'll work for us. The next questions are about the tier size. Now, I mentioned we have an M0 free sandbox sized instance. You can certainly select that as your first cluster. I've already done that, and it's important to note that you can only have one M0 sized sandbox instance per project. You can have multiple projects, but you can only have one M0 in a project. I've already done that, so I can't select it. So I'll select something a little larger just to show you the configuration settings and available options. Notice I'm selecting M30, and as I change to an M40, your per hour charge is going to go up. So you're paying only for what you use based on the tier size. So an M20, for example, is going to give you about a 20 cent per hour cost. When I select a larger instance, something more suitable for a production application, for example, I can see that I'm going to get 8 gigabytes of RAM available, 40 gigabytes of storage, and I can change that. I can add storage, and again, the per hour charge is going to change based on what I select for my storage. And here, if I'm not sure about, maybe I'm deploying this instance and I know that I'm going to get a bunch of users right out of the gate, but I don't know how many, I might want to select auto scalability. That's going to give us the ability to deploy on an M30, and then based on whether or not those users show up and start hammering your database or your application, it will then deploy a larger size instance to meet the necessary demands. Very powerful, especially for a startup or maybe a student with a project that you've got for a final project, and you want to be able to make sure that all of the students can get in and access the data. That is auto scalability, very powerful. So moving on, we have additional settings around backup and restore. Pretty straightforward. If you want to make sure your data is available in the event of a catastrophe, you want to back that data up, of course. And then you could change the cluster name. From there, you would just hit create cluster, and it usually takes about 7 minutes to deploy a cluster. I've already done that, so sort of like a cooking show. I've already deployed my sandbox instance and even a larger instance, so I can show you what these things are all about. Once you deploy your cluster, the next 2 steps are going to be for you to give people access to it. You want to be able to have people log in, or your application log in and access the data. That's going to be done by creating a user in the database. Sorry, I might have timed out. My credentials have timed out. Sorry about that. So click the database access, and you're going to want to create a user. That's going to give your application a user ID and a password that you can use to log in. The simplest way is with a password, but you can also use certificate-based if you have security concerns, or you can even, if you're an AWS user and you're familiar with IAM user credentials, you can use an IAM access credential. For the time being, I'll just add another one for Lieke, because she's going to log in and start modifying our database. And from there, I'm going to give her the type of access I want. She's going to write an application that's going to have read and write to any database. And from there, you also can grant access to this user to the data lake. I'll leave the data lake for another talk, but this is really important, a temporary user. Maybe Lieke only needs access for a day or a week or maybe 6 hours. You can set this setting and her user ID will be removed after that period of time. I'll go ahead and add Lieke, and that way she'll have access. While that's deploying to the 3-node cluster, let's jump back over and, or actually, let's make sure that we have network access. So we've added a user. Now we want to make sure that we have access over the network. And that's essentially poking a hole in the firewall for my specific IP address, which I've already done. You're going to want to make sure that you do this for your IP address. You can, if you wish, open access from anywhere, but just know that that's a bit of a security concern. That means that anybody from anywhere, any IP address on the internet, can get access to the cluster, but they'll still have to have a user ID and password. So be careful with that. Make sure you add your IP address or the IP address of the application that's going to be issuing commands to your cluster. Once you have your user and your network, you're pretty much good to go. So if we come back to our cluster screen, I'm going to see the cluster. We get to see what's going on in terms of operations and the logical size. And I can begin to actually look at the metrics of my applications that are accessing this data. Now, I just deployed this earlier, so there's not a whole lot going on, but I do see that there are 3 nodes in this cluster. That's how we achieve high availability. So if this primary were to go down, one of these 2 other secondaries is going to pick up and become the primary until this primary comes back online. That is what we call high availability. So we've kind of covered scalability in that we can change between any tier. We can even do that automatically. And we've covered availability. Let's look at the actual data. Now, I deployed my free tier instance, and I called that GHU for GitHub Universe. And let's take a look at deploying a sample data set. So you may not know much about documents or a document database, what that looks like, but MongoDB gives you the ability to deploy these sample data sets. And they're fantastic because they give you really great examples of how document databases are laid out. I've already done that. It takes about 5 minutes to deploy. So let's skip that and go right into our collections. And we can see that there are a number of databases in my data, in my cluster, labeled sample underscore. These are the sample databases, obviously. One really cool one is this sample Airbnb database. And this contains all the data that you might think that you would see in the Airbnb application. So it's describing the listing URL for Airbnb and what type of listing it is. And notice right in Atlas, in the console, I have the ability to edit the data. So at any point in time, I can change this data and commit my changes. I can even insert new records. So if I slide over here, I can insert a new document and type the entire data for that document. So really powerful control, great visibility. And how are we doing on time? So we've got about 9 minutes left. I think we're good. So from here, what I'd like to show you is how to connect to this data. Let's say you're going to write an application, or maybe you want to use MongoDB Compass to get visibility to that data, and you want to see what it looks like, maybe even edit it right from within. So we're going to jump over to MongoDB Compass. As I mentioned, this is a tool that you download and install, and that's available from the MongoDB website, MongoDB Compass. And what you're going to do is you're going to provide a connection string. So I'm going to say connect to, and it's going to prompt me for the location, the URI of the cluster that I want to modify and maintain in Compass. Now, while this is coming up, here's the prompt for the connection string. Where do I get that? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm going to come back to Atlas, and I'm going to click the connect button, and then I'm going to select that I want to connect to my cluster with MongoDB Compass, and this is going to give me the URI here. Copy this connection string, then open MongoDB Compass. So make sure you have Compass installed first. Open Compass, and go to that connect screen. Copy this connection string, and then jump back over to Compass. And you can paste that in, and then make sure you type the user ID and password that you just created. Lieke just created one, and this is super secure. I hit connect, and there we go. So now we have 2 instances open, but that's okay. Make this a little bigger so we can see it. So here, just as we saw in Atlas, we see all of our databases. And if we kind of drill into the sample Airbnb and click the listings and reviews collection, I see the very same view that I saw inside Atlas. Pretty cool. Now, one really great thing is we have the ability to analyze the schema of our data. And what that's going to do is it's going to look at all of the documents inside our collection, inside our database, and it's going to try and determine the best possible way to display the data for you. So for example, if I look at the data, I see that the accommodates field, it's an integer 32 field, and it's got a number of different types of values. And Compass has said, the best way to display this range data is going to be in a bar chart. So here we have a bar chart, and I can see that 37% of my data in this database has the number 2 in the accommodates field. So really intuitive way. But this is one of my favorite things. If I open the address, where do we go? Here we go. If I open the address field, we can see that country, there's a range of different values. And if we come down to location, what is this? It's a map. The map is displaying pins on a map. That's pretty cool because what it's done is it's interrogated this field and it said, okay, I see an array of latitude and longitude values. And humans can read those for sure, but you may not understand what 7.999484, 49 dot something or other is. And it does. So MongoDB Compass knows that that is a geolocation, a set of geolocation coordinates. And it says humans really would love to see that in a map. So it's going to put pins on a map for you. And there's that data. So you can actually hover over each one. Now, why Airbnb has has a listing in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean, I don't know. but it does. So again, this is sample data. So that is MongoDB Compass. As I mentioned before, you have the ability in the document section to edit. You can insert. You can modify each instance. Here's an embedded set of documents. You can review those. Got this set really huge, so it's displaying kind of funny. So that's the sample data. Looking at it in the MongoDB Compass interface. That is really where I think I wanted to cover. I think we're good on time. So I think what I'd like to do is jump back to the presentation, make sure we cover off the rest. So we launched a cluster. We took a look at the sample data. We added a user. We added a firewall entry to access over the network. And we looked at MongoDB Compass. So I hope you found that useful. I hope you were inspired to jump into MongoDB Atlas, create a cluster on your own. Again, you can start for free. Don't forget to visit mongodb.com/podcast. I would love to have you as a listener. If you have the time, take a listen to some of the episodes. And if you enjoy what you hear, leave us a review. That would be fantastic. Visit us in the community. I'm always waiting for folks to ask questions and interact with the rest of the community. And as Lieke mentioned, visit us at students.mongodb.com to get your $200 Atlas credit. Sign in with your GitHub credentials, and you'll be good to go. That is all I have. Thank you so much for listening.